The constant noise of the Avenue Cafe in the City of London was like a chaotic symphony that Marina Sterling knew by heart. Cups clinking against saucers, overlapping conversations, the hiss of the espresso machine, hurried footsteps of customers who came and went without even looking at her. Marina Sterling was 26 years old and had worked there for 2 years, serving coffees, forced smiles, and automatic friendliness to people who never truly saw her. She was invisible, and she had gotten used to it, or at least she pretended she had. That Thursday afternoon, business was brisk. Marina balanced a tray with 4 cappuccinos when she noticed a man sitting alone at the corner table, the same one that usually remained empty because it offered a prime view of Regent Street. He wore a simple dress shirt, no tie, dark jeans, and a discreet watch. Nothing about him screamed luxury, but there was something in his posture that caught attention. He looked out the window with an expression Marina recognized immediately because she saw it in the mirror every day. It was existential weariness, that kind of exhaustion that doesn't come from the body, but from the soul. Marina was about to approach when the cafe door burst open. A tall woman, impeccably dressed in a white suit that probably cost 3 months of Marina's salary, entered as if the entire place should stop to admire her. Her blonde hair was perfectly brushed, her handbag was a brand Marina only saw in magazines, and her high heels made an authoritative sound against the wooden floor. The woman looked around with barely disguised disdain before locating the man in the corner and walking towards him with determined steps. Marina observed from afar while serving other tables. The man politely stood. When the woman arrived, pulled out a chair for her and sat back down. They exchanged formal greetings. Marina couldn't hear the conversation, but their body language said it all. The woman looked around constantly, checked her phone every 2 minutes, and when she spoke to the man it was with a superficial smile that didn't reach her eyes. The man, in turn, seemed genuinely interested, asked questions, listened attentively, but Marina perceived that he was uncomfortable, as if he were fulfilling an obligation. 20 minutes passed. Marina had just taken a couple's order when she heard a feminine voice rise above the ambient noise. It was the woman in white. "It's not worth my time. I'm sorry, but I expected someone more, well, someone of a certain level. You seem too ordinary to me." The silence that followed was deafening. Some conversations stopped. Heads turned discreetly. Marina felt her blood run cold. The woman stood up, picked up her handbag, and without waiting for a reply, walked across the cafe with the same arrogance with which she had arrived. The door closed behind her, and the buzz gradually returned, but the looks of curiosity and pity directed at the man remained. Marina saw him lower his head for an instant, take a deep breath and look out the window again. She knew that feeling, the sensation of being disposable, of not being enough, of being judged by a superficial and distorted version of who you truly are. How many times had she herself felt exactly like that, when customers snapped their fingers to get her attention as if she were an object? When college friends stopped inviting her to events because she no longer had the time or money to join them? When her own family looked at her with pity for having abandoned her dreams? Something happened inside Marina at that moment, an impulse she couldn't control. Her hands trembled as she approached his table, and her heart beat so hard she was sure he could hear it. "Excuse me, can I bring you something?" Her voice came out softer than she intended. The man looked up, and Marina saw his eyes for the first time. They were dark brown, with small wrinkles at the corners that suggested he used to smile, though he wasn't smiling now. There was kindness in those eyes, but also a deep sadness that she recognized. "An espresso, please." Marina nodded and was about to turn away when the words came out of her mouth before she could censor them. She was wrong. The man blinked, confused. "I'm sorry?" Marina felt her face flush, but she had already started. She couldn't go back. "The woman. She was wrong about you. I saw everything. And I know it's none of my business, but you seem like a kind person, and that's far more valuable than anything she was looking for." The silence between them stretched for a few eternal seconds. Marina was about to apologize and run away when she saw a small, genuine smile form on his lips. "Thank you. You have no idea how much I needed to hear that." Marina smiled back, feeling a strange and unexpected connection with this man who was a complete stranger. She brought the espresso, and when she returned, he was still there, looking at her with an expression that made her feel seen for the first time in a long time. "May I ask your name?" Marina Sterling." "Nice to meet you, Marina. I'm Raphael Aston." They exchanged a few more words before the manager looked her way impatiently. Marina went back to work, but she couldn't stop thinking about that encounter. There was something about Raphael that intrigued her. It wasn't physical attraction, though he was attractive in a discreet, natural way. It was something deeper, the feeling that here was someone who understood what it was like to feel out of place in their own world. Raphael stayed for another hour, working on a laptop he had taken from his backpack. From time to time their gazes met and he smiled. When he finally stood to leave, he left. A generous tip and a folded note under the saucer. Marina waited for him to leave before opening it. It was written in a firm, elegant hand. "Thank you for your kindness. You reminded me that there are still real people in this world. Raphael." Marina put the note in her uniform pocket and continued her shift, but a seed had been planted in her heart. A seed of hope she didn't know she was still capable of cultivating. When she arrived home that night, in the small two-bedroom apartment she shared with her mother in the Islington neighborhood, Marina was still thinking about Raphael. Her mother, Mrs. Celia, was watching a soap opera in the living room when she entered. "You're late today, dear." "Busy at the cafe, Mum. How was your day?" Mrs. Celia was a 58-year-old woman who looked 70. The suffering of recent years had left deep marks on her face. She worked as a cleaner in 3 different houses to supplement their income, and Marina felt a lump in her throat every time she saw her come home completely exhausted. "It was good. Mrs. Gloria paid me early this month, said she's going away and doesn't want to leave me without." Marina smiled and kissed her mother's forehead before going to her room. It was a tiny space, but it was hers. On the walls, there were still a few posters of writers she admired: Jane Austen, Virginia Woolf, Charles Dickens, remnants of a time when she had bigger dreams than simply surviving. She had started studying English literature at the University of London 3 years ago. It was all she ever wanted. To be a teacher, work with literature, teach young people to love words the way she did. But then her father fell ill. Aggressive cancer that consumed not only his life but all the family's savings. Marina had dropped out of university in her 3rd semester to work full-time and help pay for the treatment. Her father passed away a year ago, and since then, Marina felt as if a part of her had died with him. She lay on her bed and picked up Raphael's note again. "You reminded me that there are still real people in this world." Was she a real person, or had she become just a shadow, a pale and faded version of who she could have been? Marina didn't know the answer, but for the first time in a long time she wanted to find out. Raphael Aston woke up the next morning in his penthouse in the Mayfair district with a strange feeling in his chest. He looked around the spacious room, with its floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of London, and for the first time in years, that space seemed excessively empty to him. Not physically empty, as it was furnished with carefully chosen designer pieces, but emotionally empty, cold, lifeless. He thought of Marina, the way she had approached him in the cafe, overcoming what was clearly paralyzing shyness, just to offer words of comfort to a stranger. There was something profoundly human in that gesture, something Raphael didn't often find in his world of corporate meetings, multi-million-pound contracts, and superficial relationships. Raphael owned one of the most successful technology companies in the UK. His startup had begun 10 years ago in a garage, and today it was worth billions. He had created an artificial intelligence platform that revolutionized how companies manage data, and now provided services to giant corporations in the UK and abroad. But Raphael had never been the type to flaunt wealth. He drove a simple car, wore discreet clothes, and avoided social events whenever possible. His partner and best friend, Marcus, always said he had a billionaire's fortune and a middle-class lifestyle, and he wasn't wrong. The previous day's blind date had been Marcus's idea. Patricia Davies was the daughter of an important businessman with a degree in management from the London School of Economics, And according to Marcus, she would be the perfect companion for Raphael. But Raphael had realized within 5 minutes that she was only interested in status and appearances. When he mentioned that he liked to spend weekends reading at home, she had discreetly rolled her eyes. When he said he preferred simple restaurants to trendy places, she had changed the subject. And when he refused to talk about his company's figures and profits, she had decided he wasn't worth her time. Raphael hadn't corrected her assumptions because he was tired of being sought after for the size of his bank account. How many times had he seen someone's behavior change completely upon discovering who he really was? How many times had he wondered if the people around him loved him or loved what he possessed? Raphael's loneliness wasn't the absence of people, but the absence of true connections. And then Marina had appeared, a waitress in a simple uniform who knew nothing about him, wanted nothing from him, had simply seen another human being suffering and decided to do something about it. Raphael couldn't get her out of his head. He spent the day at the office trying to concentrate, but his mind constantly returned to those green eyes that had looked at him with genuine compassion. At 5 in the afternoon, Raphael made an impulsive decision. He dismissed his driver, took his own car, and drove to the Avenue Cafe. Marina was there, as he expected. She wore the same black and white uniform and carried a tray with sandwiches to a table near the window. When she turned and saw him, her eyes widened in surprise and a hesitant smile appeared on her lips. Raphael felt something warm in his chest. "Hi. Hi. Back for another blind date?" The question had a touch of humor, and Raphael laughed. "No. I came back because I wanted to. May I sit?" Marina looked around, checking if the manager was watching. The cafe was relatively empty at that hour. "Of course, what would you like?" "The company of a new friend, if you have a few minutes." Marina felt her heart race. There was something intense in the way he looked at her, as if she were the most important person in the room. She had never felt that before. "Let me just say I'm taking a break." She returned 3 minutes later with 2 coffees and sat opposite him. For the first time in 2 years, Marina let the world around her disappear. "So, tell me, how did you end up working here?" The question was simple, but the answer was complicated. Marina took a deep breath. "I was studying English literature at the University of London. It was my dream to be a teacher, you know. Work with literature, teach. But my dad got sick 3 years ago. Cancer. I had to drop everything to work and help with expenses. He didn't make it. It's been a year now." Raphael saw the pain cross her face, and his hand instinctively moved to cover hers on the table. "I'm so sorry, Marina." "Thank you, it's hard, not just losing him, but losing my dreams too. I know it sounds selfish. It's not selfish, it's human." They were silent for a moment, just looking at each other. "And you? What do you do, Raphael?" Raphael hesitated. This was the moment he would usually make up a vague story or change the subject, but there was something about Marina that made him want to be honest, even if partially. "I work in technology. It's interesting, but it can be lonely. I spend a lot of time surrounded by people who want something from me, whether it's investment, partnership, contacts. Sometimes it's hard to know who truly cares about you and who only cares about what you can offer." Marina nodded, understanding perfectly. "I understand. Sometimes I feel invisible. People look right through me, you know, like I'm just part of the scenery. You're not invisible to me." Raphael's words were charged with sincerity, and Marina felt tears prick her eyes. She blinked quickly to push them away. They talked for 40 minutes. They spoke about books they loved, films that moved them, places they dreamed of visiting. Marina discovered that Raphael had read all of Charles Dickens and that Bleak House was his favorite. Raphael discovered that Marina wrote poetry in the early hours when she couldn't sleep, but had never shown it to anyone. It was as if 2 lonely souls had finally found someone who spoke the same language. When Marina had to go back to work, Raphael didn't want to leave. He ordered another coffee, then a pastry, and stayed there working on his laptop until the cafe closed. Every time Marina passed his table, they exchanged glances and knowing smiles. When it was finally time to close, Raphael waited outside. Marina exited through the staff gate and found him leaning against an ordinary car, hands in his pockets. "I thought I'd wait for you. Can I give you a lift?" "I live far, Islington." "No problem. It's on my way." Marina knew it probably wasn't, but she accepted. In the car, they continued talking, and Raphael discovered more about her life, about how she and her mother struggled to pay the bills every month, about how she dreamed of going back to university, but knew it was financially impossible, about how she had resigned herself to a life of sacrifices because it was what she had to do. Raphael felt a mixture of admiration and pain. Here was a woman with so much potential, so much inner light, being wasted serving coffees because life had been cruel to her. He wanted to help. He wanted to give her all the opportunities she deserved, but he was afraid of scaring her, of ruining that fragile and precious connection they were building. When they stopped in front of the simple building where Marina lived, she hesitated before getting out of the car. "Thank you for the ride, and for the conversation. It's been a long time since. I felt so seen. Thank you. Can I come back tomorrow?" Marina smiled, and it was as if the sun had risen inside the car. "I'll be there." And so began a routine that would last the next 2 weeks. Raphael returned to the Avenue Cafe every day, sometimes in the afternoon, sometimes in the morning, sometimes both. During quiet moments, Marina would sit with him and they would talk about everything and nothing. He brought books he thought she would like, and she read them during sleepless nights, underlining passages that touched her to discuss with him the next day. She wrote poems on napkins and left them for him to find. He kept them all in a folder in his office. Julia, Marina's co-worker and best friend since her first day at the cafe, observed everything with growing attention. She was a 30-year-old woman, extroverted and direct, the complete opposite of Marina. During a break on the 10th day since Raphael began frequenting the cafe religiously, Julia pulled Marina into the storage room. "All right, now you're going to tell me everything about this guy. He's been coming here every day, staring at you like you're the 8th wonder of the world, and you two are having those whispered conversations. What's going on?" Marina felt her face flush. "It's nothing, Ju. We just talk." "Talk? Marina, my love, I've seen the way he looks at you, and the way you look at him. That's not just talk. You're in love." The word hit Marina like a punch to the gut because she knew Julia was right. In just 2 weeks, Raphael had become the most important part of her days. She woke up thinking about him, worked on autopilot waiting for his arrival, and fell asleep, recalling every word exchanged. It was terrifying and wonderful at the same time. "I barely know him, Ju, but you want to know him, and he clearly wants to know you too. So what's the problem?" "The problem is we come from different worlds. He's well off, even if he doesn't flaunt it. I noticed by the details. His watch, the way he speaks, the places he mentions. And I'm me." Julia shook her head vehemently. "You're amazing, Marina. If he doesn't see that, it's his problem, not yours." But Marina carried deep scars from feeling insufficient. Her father used to say she was destined for great things, that her intelligence and love for books would take her far. And then she had abandoned everything. She had failed. How could she be enough for someone like Raphael when she wasn't even enough for herself? That afternoon, Raphael arrived with a wrapped package in his hands. When Marina went to his table, he pushed the package towards her with a shy smile. "I know you said you're short on money for books, so, well, I hope you don't mind." Marina opened the package with trembling hands and found a beautiful, leather-bound edition of Virginia Woolf's short stories with gilded pages. It was the kind of edition that cost more than she earned in a week. "Raphael, I can't accept this. It's too expensive." "It's a gift, and before you argue, it already has a dedication, so technically it's impossible to return." He opened the first page where there was a handwritten message. "To Marina, who taught me to see beauty where I had forgotten to look. With admiration, Raphael." Marina felt tears burn her eyes. No one had ever done something like this for her. No one had seen her like this. "Thank you, I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything. I just want to see you happy." And it was in that moment, with that precious book in her hands and that gentle man looking at her with barely disguised adoration, that Marina realized she was completely in love, and she was terrified. Over the next week, Raphael began to weigh whether or not he should reveal who he really was. Every time Marina mentioned money, spoke about her financial difficulties, or commented on having to work extra shifts, he felt an urgent desire to simply solve everything for her. He had the resources. For him, it would be easy, insignificant even, to pay for her university, ensure her mother didn't have to work as a cleaner, give Marina the life she deserved. But he was afraid. Afraid that she would see him differently. Afraid that the money would ruin the purity of what they had. Marcus, his partner, had strong opinions on the matter. "You're living a lie, man. She thinks you're just another normal middle-class guy. When she finds out the truth, she'll feel deceived, and rightly so. I didn't lie, I just didn't tell her everything. Omission is lying too. If you really like her, you have to be honest." Raphael knew Marcus was right, but the timing never seemed appropriate. Until one night, when he was driving Marina home after her shift, she started crying in the passenger seat. "Marina, what happened?" She tried to hide her face, ashamed of her weakness. "Sorry, it's silly." "It's not silly if it made you cry. Tell me." Between sobs, Marina explained. She had received an email from the university that day. They were offering a program to resume studies for students who had dropped out due to financial reasons. It was a rare opportunity with a partial scholarship, but even with the scholarship, there would still be costs for materials, transportation, and she would have to reduce her working hours, which would mean less money to help her mother. It was impossible. She would have to refuse, as she always refused anything that looked like hope. Raphael felt something break inside him. He couldn't bear to see Marina suffer anymore when he had the power to change everything. He pulled the car over at a viewpoint overlooking the illuminated city and turned to her. "Marina, I need to tell you something." And then he told her. He told her about his company, about his financial success, about how he was one of the wealthiest entrepreneurs in the country. He explained why he had hidden everything out of fear of being used. And then, with all the sincerity he possessed, he made his proposal. "Let me pay for your university, and help your mother too. I can afford it, and it would be an honor to do that for you. You deserve to achieve your dreams, Marina, and I want to be the person who helps you get there." The silence that followed was heavy and tense. Raphael saw several emotions cross Marina's face: confusion, understanding, and then something that terrified him: anger. "You lied to me." "I didn't lie. I just didn't tell me you're a millionaire. You just let me sit here talking about my financial difficulties while you probably spend more on one dinner than I earn in a month. It's not like that. I didn't see you as a charity project. That's exactly what I am to you, a project. The poor little waitress you can save to feel good about yourself. God, I'm such an idiot. Marina, please listen." But she didn't want to listen. All her insecurities, all her fears about not being good enough, about coming from a different world, about being inferior, surged like a tsunami. She opened the car door. "I'm walking home. It's miles from here. Please." "I'd rather walk, and I'd prefer you not to come back to the cafe. We have nothing in common, Raphael. You were right to hide who you are, because if I had known, I would never have let this go so far." She got out of the car and started walking. Raphael tried to follow her, but she turned with tear-filled eyes. "Please, go away." And he did, because he didn't know what else to do, because he had just lost the only person who made him feel whole, because he had made the mistake of thinking that money could solve everything, when in reality it had only destroyed everything. The next 5 days were the longest of Marina's life. She tried to convince herself that she had done the right thing, that she had protected herself from a situation that would inevitably hurt her. But every minute without Raphael was silent torture. She made stupid mistakes at work, confused orders, dropped cups, forgot to write down tables. Julia pulled her into the storage room on the 3rd day. "All right, enough. Tell me what happened with Raphael." Marina told her everything, about the revelation, about his proposal, about how she had felt humiliated and reduced to a charity project. Julia listened in silence, and when Marina finished, her friend looked at her with a mixture of compassion and frustration. "Marina, with all due respect, you're being foolish." "What do you mean?" "The man offered you help because he cares about you. He didn't see you as a project, he saw you as someone who deserves a chance to achieve her dreams, and you threw it in his face. He lied about who he was. He protected himself from opportunistic people. Can't you understand that? How many times have you yourself hidden your dreams and ambitions because you were afraid of seeming presumptuous or of being disappointed? It's the same thing." "It's not the same thing. He has money. He can solve any problem with money. And you think money buys happiness, buys true connection? Marina, this man came here every day just to be near you. He listened to you, respected you, saw you, and you're throwing that away out of pride." Julia's words echoed in Marina's head all night. She lay looking at the ceiling, replaying every moment she had shared with Raphael, the way he laughed at her jokes, how he held her hand when she talked about her father, how he looked at her as if she were the most precious thing in the world. She hadn't seen condescension in that look. She had seen love. Marina sat up in bed with her heart pounding. She loved Raphael. She had fallen completely in love with him, and she had rejected him not because he had done anything wrong, but because she was afraid. Afraid of not being good enough. Afraid of being left. Afraid of giving herself to something that seemed too big, too important, too terrifying. While Marina came to these painful conclusions in her small room in Islington, Raphael was wallowing in his own misery in his office in the City of London. He hadn't been home in 3 days. He slept on the office sofa, drank coffee, straight from the thermos, and worked himself to exhaustion in the hope that fatigue would prevent him from thinking about Marina. Marcus entered without knocking on the afternoon of the 5th day and found his partner unshaven, red-eyed, and surrounded by a pile of documents that clearly hadn't been touched. "Mate, you look like a homeless person." "Thanks for the observation, Marcus." "When was the last time you ate something that wasn't coffee?" "I don't remember." Marcus sat in the chair opposite Raphael's desk and crossed his arms. "You need to go after her." "She doesn't want to see me. She made that very clear." "Because you threw money at the problem before giving her time to process who you really are. You rushed things." "I just wanted to help." "I know, but sometimes helping means giving space. It means letting the person have their pride. It means respecting their timing." Raphael ran his hands through his hair. "What if she doesn't forgive me? What if I lost the only person who saw me as Raphael, not as Raphael the CEO, not as Raphael the billionaire, just Raphael?" Marcus sighed. "Then you'll have to live with that. But at least you'll know you tried. Now, for goodness sake, go home, take a shower, get some real sleep, and decide what you're going to do. Because this isn't you, and I need my partner back." Raphael nodded slowly. Marcus was right. He was wallowing in self-pity when he should have been fighting for what he wanted. And he wanted Marina, more than he had wanted anything in his life. But before he could make any plans, on the morning of the 6th day, his secretary informed him that he had a visitor. A young woman named Marina Sterling was at reception, asking to see him. Raphael's heart almost stopped. "Send her up immediately." Marina was terrified. She had researched Raphael the night before and discovered exactly who he was. Articles about his company, interviews where he spoke about technological innovation, photos of him at charity events. A Forbes magazine article listed him among the 100 most influential entrepreneurs in the UK. She was about to enter the office of a man who probably had more money than she could earn in 10 lifetimes. And she had rejected him. She had said horrible things to him. The secretary guided her down an elegant corridor to a meeting room with a view of the city. Raphael was already there, standing near the window, and when he turned to look at her, Marina saw the same vulnerability in his eyes that she felt. Marina. Raphael. They stood there, separated by a few feet that seemed like miles. Finally, Marina found the courage to speak. "I came to apologize. For what I said, for how I reacted. I was afraid." "Afraid of what?" Marina swallowed hard. "Of not being enough for you. Of coming from such a different world that eventually you would realize you made a mistake. Of being abandoned when you got tired of playing at dating someone ordinary. so I rejected you first, before you could reject me." Raphael crossed the distance between them in 3 long strides and held her hands in his. "I would never reject you, and I'm so sorry for not being honest from the beginning. I should have trusted you, but I have my own fear, Marina. Fear of never being loved for who I am, but for what I have. When you looked at me in that cafe on the first day, you saw me, not my company, not my bank account, just me, and it was the most liberating thing I've ever felt." Tears streamed down Marina's face. "I love you, Raphael, and that terrifies me, because I've never loved anyone like this before. But I don't want to let fear stop me from having something real. I love you too, and I promise we'll figure out how to make this work, together." They embraced there in the middle of that huge room, 2 wounded hearts finding healing in each other. When they finally separated, Raphael had a proposal. "Let's do things differently. This time. Let's go slow. Let's really get to know each other without hiding who we are or where we come from. And when you're ready, without pressure, without expectations, I want to support you in going back to university. Not as a charity project, but as someone who believes in you." Marina nodded, smiling through her tears. "Slow. I like that." And so began Raphael and Marina's official courtship. A month passed, and it was the happiest month either of them could remember. Raphael reduced his working hours to spend more time with her. Marina introduced Raphael to her mother, who was initially suspicious but was won over by his genuine kindness. They went to simple restaurants that Marina loved, and Raphael took her to see places in the city she had never had the opportunity to visit, but always respecting her pace, always making sure she was comfortable. It was at the end of that month that Raphael received the invitation he knew would eventually arrive. A charity gala event at the Shard Hotel, one of London's most exclusive venues. It was an event he would normally avoid, but this year his company was being honored for its social responsibility initiatives. He couldn't miss it, and he wanted Marina by his side. When he mentioned the event during a simple dinner at her house, Marina felt her blood run cold. "A gala? Raphael, I can't. I've never been to anything like that. I don't have suitable clothes. I don't know how to behave in those places." Raphael held her hand across the table. "You just need to be yourself. And about the clothes, I'd like to take you to choose something you like. Not as an imposition, but because I want you to feel confident and beautiful, which is what you are." Marina hesitated, but the sincerity in his gaze was undeniable. 2 days later, they went together to an elegant boutique in a shopping center Marina only knew from pictures. The saleswoman greeted them with immediate attention as soon as she saw Raphael, and Marina felt the first pang of discomfort. She clearly didn't belong there. Raphael noticed her tension and intertwined his fingers with hers. "Breathe. We're just looking for a dress, nothing more." Marina tried on several models, each more elaborate than the last, but none seemed right until she found an elegant but simple navy blue dress with a discreet cut and quality fabric. When she came out of the changing room, Raphael was speechless. "You look perfect." Marina looked at her reflection in the mirror and for the first time saw what Raphael saw. A beautiful and worthy woman who deserved to be anywhere she chose to be. On the night of the gala, Raphael came to pick her up. Marina wore the blue dress, simple high-heeled shoes she had bought with her own money because she insisted, and Mrs. Celia had helped pin her hair into an elegant bun. When Raphael saw her, he smiled that way that made her feel butterflies in her stomach. "You look stunning, and you look very elegant in your tuxedo." In the car on the way to the hotel, Marina became increasingly nervous. Raphael noticed and took her hand. "Hey, look at me. I'll be by your side all night. If you get uncomfortable at any point, we'll leave. No questions asked, okay?" Marina nodded, grateful for his patience. The Shard Hotel was even more impressive in person. The modern architecture looked like a giant glass and copper ship, and when they entered the main ballroom, Marina felt as if she had stepped into another world. There were hundreds of people, all dressed in expensive clothes, talking in groups, laughing, drinking champagne. Huge chandeliers hung from the ceiling, and an orchestra played softly in a corner. Raphael guided her through the crowd, making introductions when necessary, but always keeping Marina close. She noticed the curious glances they received. Some people evaluated her from head to toe, clearly trying to figure out who she was. Marina raised her chin and smiled politely, refusing to show the nervousness she felt. They were seated at a table when Marina saw a woman approaching. She was tall, blonde, wore a red dress that probably cost more than a small car, and had a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Marina recognized the type immediately. It was the same aura of superiority as the woman from the blind date. "Raphael, what a surprise to see you here. You usually avoid these events." "Hello, Veronica. This is Marina, my girlfriend." Veronica extended a limp hand to Marina, evaluating her with critical eyes. "Charmed. I don't recall seeing you before. Which family are you from?" The question was a trap, and Marina knew it. She could lie, she could invent something vague, but she decided she wouldn't. She wasn't ashamed of who she was. "I'm not from any known family. I work as a waitress in a cafe downtown." The silence that followed was heavy. Veronica blinked, as if unsure she had heard correctly. "A waitress? How interesting." "Raphael, I didn't know you had, how can I say, such eclectic tastes." The venom in the words was barely disguised. Marina felt humiliation begin to rise through her body. But before she could respond, Raphael stood from his chair. His voice was calm, but laced with authority. "Marina has more dignity, intelligence, and worth in her little finger than most people in this ballroom, including you, Veronica. She works honestly, helps her family, and doesn't need anyone's surname or bank account to have value. If you can't see that, the problem is your inability to recognize real worth when it's right in front of you." Veronica turned pale. Some people at nearby tables had stopped talking and were looking. She tried a nervous laugh. "I was just making an observation. And I'm making mine. Excuses, we're leaving." Raphael extended his hand to Marina, who accepted it with a pounding heart. They walked through the ballroom under curious gazes and reached the parking lot. Marina was trembling, but not from humiliation. It was something else. It was gratitude. It was love. It was the overwhelming feeling of being defended, of being valued, of having someone who wasn't ashamed of her. When they reached the car, before Raphael could open the door, Marina pulled him by his tie and kissed him. It was their first kiss, and it was charged with everything she felt. All the words she couldn't say, all the love she had accumulated, all the gratitude for him having seen her when she was invisible to the world. When they finally separated, both were breathless. "What was that?" Marina smiled with tears in her eyes. "It was my way of thanking you for defending me, for not being ashamed of me, for making me feel like I belong anywhere I choose to be. You always belonged, Marina. You just needed to believe it." They got into the car, and Raphael drove, but instead of going to her house, he went somewhere else. When they stopped, Marina recognized the address. It was the building where his penthouse was. She had never been there. "I want to show you where I live, if you want to." Marina wanted to. They went up the private elevator that went directly to the top floor. When the doors opened, Marina entered a space that looked like it was out of an architectural magazine. Huge windows offered a 360-degree view of London. The decor was modern but welcoming, with many books, some contemporary art paintings, and a huge balcony with plants. "Wow, it's beautiful. But it feels empty, doesn't it? I always felt like something was missing here. Now I know what it was. It was you." Raphael pulled her close, and they stood there, looking at the city together through the windows. Marina rested her head on his shoulder. "I love you, Raphael, and I won't let fear control me anymore." "Me neither. I promise we'll build something real, something of our own." And there, in the middle of that luxurious penthouse, with the illuminated city around them, Marina finally allowed herself to believe that she deserved it. She deserved love, she deserved happiness, she deserved to dream big again. The evening's event had been a test, and she had passed. Not because she had behaved according to high society's expectations, but because she had been authentic, and Raphael loved her exactly for that. The days following the event were transformative for Marina. She had crossed an invisible threshold on the night of the gala, and on the other side was a version of herself she thought she had lost years ago. The young dreamer who believed she could conquer the world through words, literature, teaching. That Marina was returning slowly but surely. Raphael noticed the change. Marina smiled more, laughed more easily, and her eyes had regained a sparkle he suspected hadn't been there for a long time. She had started writing again, not just poems on napkins, but real stories. She wrote in the early hours, during work breaks, on weekends. It was as if a dam had broken inside her. A week after the event, Marina was at the cafe during her shift when she received a call. It was from the University of London, the English Literature Department. They were calling about the study resumption program she had inquired about months ago. A full scholarship had opened up due to an anonymous donation to the Student Aid Fund, and Marina had been selected as one of the beneficiaries. She could return to study next semester if she wished. Marina hung up the phone with trembling hands. She knew who had made the donation. Raphael. He had promised not to pressure her, but he had found a way to help without it seeming like direct charity. She should have been angry about the interference, but all she felt was immense gratitude, because he had done it while respecting her pride, allowing her to believe she had achieved it on her own merit. That night, after the cafe closed, Marina didn't go home. She took the address of Raphael's penthouse that he had given her and took a taxi there. Her heart pounded as she pressed the intercom. "Marina, is everything all right?" His voice was concerned. "Everything's great. Can I come up?" "Of course, always." When the elevator opened to the penthouse, Raphael was waiting with an anxious expression. Marina crossed the distance between them and stopped a few inches from him. "The university called today." Raphael swallowed hard. And I know it was you, the anonymous donation." "Marina." She placed a finger on his lips to silence him. "Let me finish. I spent my whole life in fear. Fear of dreaming big because I knew I didn't have the resources to achieve those dreams. Fear of loving because I knew people like me don't end up with happy endings. Fear of being seen because whenever someone truly looked at me, all they saw was inadequacy. But you saw me differently. You saw me as I could be, not as I was forced to be by circumstances." Tears streamed down her face now, but it was a cry of liberation. "That event was a test and I passed, but not because I behaved properly or said the right things. It was because you defended me. You stood by me in front of that whole world you belong to, and you chose me. And that made me realize something fundamental. The problem was never you finding me insufficient. It was always me sabotaging myself, thinking I was too small for you." Raphael had tears in his own eyes now. "You were never small, Marina. You are the biggest person I know." Marina smiled through her tears. "I was so afraid of becoming dependent on you, of losing my identity, that I almost lost the most important thing, you. But now I understand. Accepting help doesn't make me less strong. It allows me to be strong in different ways. And I want to accept. I want to go back to university. I want to achieve my dreams. And I want to do it with you by my side, not because you'll pay the bills, but because you believe in me." Always believed. Since the first day. Marina took a deep breath, preparing to say the words she had rehearsed on the way there. "I love you, Raphael Aston. And it's not because you have money or because you can give me a comfortable life. It's because you make me want to be the best version of myself. Because you see me when I'm invisible to the rest of the world. Because you are kind, genuine, and good. And I'm tired of being afraid. I choose you. Every day I choose you." Raphael pulled her into his arms and kissed her with all the accumulated passion, all the frustration of the days apart, all the love he had held back. When they finally separated, he was smiling with that smile that made her melt. "I love you too. And I don't want this world of privilege if you're not in it. Because you're not an accessory in my life, Marina. You are the center of it. You are what makes everything make sense." They stood there embracing for a long time, looking at the city through the huge windows. Finally, Raphael broke the silence. So, what are the plans now? Marina pulled back a little to look at him. I'm going back to university. I'm going to graduate in English literature. I'm going to be the teacher I always dreamed of being. And you're going to support me, but not by doing everything for me. You'll be there when I need you. You'll listen to me when I'm stressed with exams. You'll read my academic papers even if you don't understand anything about literary theory, and you'll celebrate with me when I succeed. Raphael laughed. Sounds perfect. And what else? You're going to work less. I know your company is important, but you work too much. You need to live, Raphael. Travel, read for pleasure, spend time with people you love. Your life can't just be work. You're right. Marcus keeps saying that too. And I'm going to introduce you to my mother properly. Not as a quick visit, but I'm going to bring you for dinner, for lunch, to be part of our life. Because she's important to me, and you are too. And you two need to truly get to know each other. Raphael nodded, moved. And we're going to build something of our own. Something that isn't about money or social class or where we came from. It's about where we're going together. They sealed the agreement with another kiss, and then Marina did something unexpected. She went to Raphael's enormous bookshelf, picked up one of the Jane Austen books he had there, and opened it to a random page. Read to me. Raphael smiled and began to read. His voice was calm and melodious, and Marina closed her eyes, resting her head on his shoulder. There, in that moment, she finally understood what peace was. Not the absence of problems, but the presence of someone who made you feel like you could face anything. In the following weeks, changes happened quickly. Marina gave her notice at the cafe, and Julia cried, but hugged her tightly, saying she always knew her friend was destined for greater things. Mrs. Celia, who initially had reservations about her daughter's relationship with such a wealthy man, was won over when Raphael showed up for Sunday lunch with flowers and offered to help wash the dishes. Marina started classes at the University of London and found that she could balance her studies with the relationship, especially since Raphael truly kept his promise to work less. 2 years later, Marina was about to graduate. She had become one of the best students in her class, had published academic articles, and already had a job offer as a teacher at a private school that valued passionate educators. Raphael had expanded his company but maintained a balance between work and personal life. They had traveled together, seen new places, built memories. Mrs. Celia had stopped working as a cleaner and now helped with a social project Marina and Raphael had created together, offering scholarships to low-income young people. On Marina's graduation night, in her cap and gown, surrounded by colleagues and professors, she looked for Raphael in the audience. He was there in the front row next to Mrs. Celia, and Marcus, applauding and smiling with pride. And Marina knew she had arrived where she was always meant to be, not just as a qualified teacher, but as a complete woman who had faced her fears and won. After the ceremony, Raphael met her outside the auditorium. "Professor Sterling, may I have a word?" Marina laughed. "Always, Mr. Aston." He knelt again, right there, in front of everyone. And this time, when he asked if she would marry him, it wasn't a promise for the future. It was an invitation to begin eternity. And Marina, without a second's hesitation, said, yes. Their story had begun with a public rejection and a courageous waitress breaking protocol. It had been built through fears faced, pride overcome, and the courage to be vulnerable. And it ended, or rather continued, with the certainty that true love knows no social barriers, is not intimidated by differences, and always finds a way. Because sometimes all we need is someone who truly sees us, and the courage to believe that we deserve to be seen. End of story. Dear listeners, we hope that Raphael and Marina's story has deeply touched your hearts. If you were moved by this journey of love, overcoming, and courage, know that we have many other equally engaging stories waiting for you. Each story is a new opportunity to feel, reflect, and be inspired. If Marina had the courage to face her fears and Raphael the wisdom to see beyond appearances, how about you have the courage to hit that subscribe button? Leave your like so we can continue bringing stories that celebrate the best of human nature. Every day, we publish unique narratives that explore the complexity of relationships, dreams, and life. Don't miss the next chapters of this emotional journey. And in the comments, tell us, have you ever had the courage to be vulnerable for love? Have you overcome your fears to achieve your dreams? We want to know your story too. Until next time, and remember, you always deserve to be seen for who you truly are.